Took a cup, fill it up with you.
Whoa, men paid $10,000 to go to a men's retreat to learn how to cry like women. What do I think about this? Well, some of my thoughts will surprise you. But first, welcome back to the JP React channel, my beautiful freedom-loving friend. This is where we like to call out the lies, hypocrisy, and corruption of tyrants and Satan, shine the light of awareness on woke absurdities, and highlight the amazing work of other freedom fighters because truth conquers. Now, we're definitely living in a time where the tyrannical powers that be, if you allow your mind to be invaded by mind viruses, they will have men behaving like women and women behaving like men. You might just say that takes you away from the truth of who you are. And when you're taken away from the truth of who you are weaker, therefore you are more controllable, and only weak people are susceptible to evil. Now, a couple of clips have been going around. You saw a taste of the first one from the men's retreat, paying $10,000 to lay in a pool, cry like women. Awesome. We'll see the rest of that clip in a second, but also there was a clip you may have seen with women's retreat. We're out in the woods screaming and beating the ground with sticks. What did the earth ever do to you? I don't know. Take a look. Right now I feel sad. You just sound angry. Like Greenpeace activists that come out. You are literally beating the environment with a stick right now. $4,000 to do this, by the way. Whoa! Whoa, what's under her eyes? I don't know that they did this at this retreat, but we know she has red, looks like red paint under her eyes. I have heard of some women's retreats where they do facial period blood. Scared that might be what that is. That women's retreat, cool, I get it. All human beings have anger. They probably have a backlog of anger. And that clip was going around just kind of like making fun of those women. Same thing with this clip going around, making fun of these men. We'll get back to the video in just a second, but first I want to tell you something obvious. It's an election year, which means the time has never been more important to be informed, yet the time where they attempt to deceive you has never been more profound. Luckily, ground news is a change maker that brings transparency back to the media, where you can know where your news is coming from, who's funding it, so you can be informed, not deceived. And if you're like me and you don't want to be a sleeping sheep, head on over to ground.news/JP. Let me show you a few things about why I love ground news that makes them completely different. Now, as you know, Biden didn't have the best debate ever. So one of the latest reports on ground news, Biden looks to make the case at the NATO summit that he is still up for the job. You can see the total news sources covering the topic. You can see which of those sources lean left, which lean right, and which are center. And the bias distribution, 53% center. A lot of times it's leaning left, which informs you who is potentially trying to shape the narrative about the subject you're reading about. Then you can see the 44 articles that come up on this topic, which way they lean, left or right or center, and then you can click on those articles and read them on their original source. If you want to be awake but not misled, head on over to ground.news/JP now. And you can hit the link in the description of this video, and when you use my link, you save 40% off the unlimited access Vantage subscription, which is a subscription that I use. And when you use Ground News, you're not only supporting me, you're supporting yourself, and you're supporting the mission of truth, because truth conquers. Now back to the video. Is that Biden? No, that wasn't him. Might have been him, made the guy next to him cry. With all the joy and the sorrow and the fear, oh, I let myself cry. Oh, I let... Now, I I would love to sit here with you and just jump on the sort of based bandwagon and bash the hell out of these two clips. Like, look at these pansy men and look at these feminist women. I'm not going to do that. I actually think highly of these practices within a full context of men's work and a full context of women's work. Now, at these specific retreats, I didn't attend them. I don't know the full context, but I'll speak from a theoretical whole context. But first, I'll share with you how I think work like this could be disempowering for men and is disempowering for men and is disempowering for women. And that is, if all you saw in this clip is all they did, the men in a pool crying, I think that's disempowering. If they go and that's all we do, cool. You're literally just teaching us to only express emotions in a feminine way. I think that's disempowering. It goes into the propaganda framework in society where tyrannical people who are trying to disempower humans are trying to get men to behave like women. Don't be an alpha male. That is toxic masculinity. It falls into that category. Or if at that women's retreat, if all they did was scream and beat the poor bloody earth with sticks, I would say that would be disempowering if that's all they did, because that would fall into the category of they're just getting women to behave like men, which is taking people away from the truth of who they are. Men have, in a healthy masculine human man, in other words, we express our emotions different than women. We have different tendencies. I don't know if you heard, but men and women are different. But if we take more of a full context, because I've been to men's retreats, never been to a women's retreat, but I've heard about them. In a full context, how this like men crying in a pool can be empowering is if they engage the warrior archetype and other aspects of the retreat, where they strengthen the warrior masculine of the men, where they teach you to be bold, to be fierce, stand for what you stand for, be willing to die on that hill, yell when your boundaries are being invaded, don't back down, teaching men to be strong and masculine, and also having a component, like you saw in the pool, where you realize a man is a human. We all have emotions and traumas that we store inside we've never processed. That's gotta come out. And that can come out in fierce, manly ways. And also my personal experience is an outlet of sensitivity is also helpful. I don't want to just have that, but also having that, it can therapeutically be very beneficial in my opinion and my experience. Because I don't want to just do the group think thing with like based alpha males here and be like, a bunch of wimps right there. Because if we're not careful, you can just imagine like a calloused dude from, say, your grandfather's generation who, you know, they're just walled off. They have so much emotion inside, they don't know how to let it out. Therefore, that disconnects them. They're like, yeah. We all know those calloused men. And we could say like, dude, that's a manly man. Well, that's not a whole man. He's got a lot of pain inside that limits his life and limits his ability to connect to other people in his life right now. The old callous dude's like, I don't want to talk about it. That's not a whole real man. And people who like to be a based man, I don't think we want to make the mistake of thinking that's a real man. Now, he might act like a man most of the time, but he doesn't even have the courage to let his emotions out in any kind of capacity. And I do believe that kind of like being held by your brothers, the pool experience kind of thing, though I've never done that exact pool experience, I think that can be a very good therapeutic outlet. I don't think that's a good dominant state of being where anytime as a man you have emotions, you need to ask someone to hold you and cuddle you so you can cry it out. No, but as a therapeutic tool to deal with the backlog so you don't become that callous old disconnected dude, it has a good application. So I'm not going to sit here and bash these videos, these dudes in the video, call them a bunch of wimps and like you're just acting like a bunch of women, because I think in a more full context, that's actually very powerful work. Again, but you got to have the warrior part of the man. Like I want these guys to also be sword fighting, killing deer, screaming, yelling, charging to take the hill. And with the women's work, you know, again, if that's all they're doing, screaming, like, cool, you're just becoming feminist. But that as a therapeutic outlet for women, I think can be very powerful. Now, teaching a woman, okay, anytime you have an emotion, you need to behave like an out of control man. probably not a good dominant state of mind of emotional expression. But as a therapeutic outlet, I think it's pretty cool. So when I saw these two videos floating around and I just saw a bunch of like based, what I would call groupthink piling on, like what a bunch of pansies and what a bunch of weird feminists. I'm like, yeah, I have a different perspective because I think that kind of work can be very powerful in a full context for a man, in a full context for a woman. And I think that type of work is very disempowering if that's all the women are doing and all the men are doing. With that said, I identify as a man, so I'm entitled to my opinion. That's my opinion on that as someone who's done self-growth work for probably 23 years. I've done some good stuff, I've done some dumb stuff, but I've definitely learned some stuff that works. So that's where my opinion comes out of on this. Because I think it's important for men to be whole men. And I think it's important for women to be whole women. And for men to act like men. And for women to act like women. Not all the time, but most of the time. With that said, my beautiful freedom-loving friend, thank you for checking this out with me. Here are my opinions. Let me know your thoughts on the comments below about what you saw in this men's work video and this women's work video. And I'll look forward to seeing you on our next video. And until then, stay whatever the hell gender you are.